Before we start, let me try to set up some like expectations so that we all are on the same page, so that we won't have any issues later related to the workshop. One thing, in case if you are looking for a certificate, or in case if you are looking for a recorded video of this demo, what you can do is you can scan this QR code, share your details so that your certificates and your like the recording for this video can be shared to you over an email. All right. Apart from that, try to make sure that you ask doubts, try to make sure that you are interactive throughout the entire session. And this is something that is very hot right now in the market, generative AI. And we'll try to understand end to end what generative AI is and how generative AI landscape looks like today. So before we start, I want all of you to first of all, or some of you, before we start the session itself, please make sure that you scan this certificate and try to scan this QR code and try to fill the form. All right. So with that, I will get an idea of how much Python you know, or is there somebody who already has some knowledge of generative AI? A quick survey form, please try to fill that by simply scanning up this QR. If you are done, you can say done in the chat section so that I have a clarity that some of you have already filled it, and then we'll try to proceed forward. Okay, so there are many people who have filled. Let me try to check the stats from the form. All right. Where can you find the form? You can simply scan it. You can simply scan the QR code. It will redirect you to the form, your details, so that we can start the workshop. This is just quick survey form so that I have a clarity about your educational backgrounds. I have a clarity about your field of study. Are you working professional or not? How much work experience you have? How do you rate yourself in Python? Like how good you are in machine learning, how good you are in deep learning or generative AI. These are the questions in the form. Please try to fill it really quick so that we can start the workshop. Where can I see the QR code? Can somebody please confirm if the QR code is visible on the screen or not? Is it visible? Can somebody please confirm in the chat section itself? It is visible, right? Girish, in case if the QR code is not visible, I think you must have selected a wrong screen. All right, just try to select the presenter's screen on your Zoom. It will be visible to you. My screen will be visible to you. I am sharing my screen. So do you want to see a quick analysis of the data that has been collected via this form? Is everybody ready to see the a very nice analysis of it? All right, so let me try to share the screen, other screen, so that I can show you the analysis. What do you see over here? What is the question? Do you see there is a pie chart created for a question called as educational qualification, right? And what do you observe from here? Do you see most of the people? Can you please tell me what is the educational qualification of most of us? What is our education qualification for most of us? BTech, perfect. And you can see a lot of other educational qualifications as well, right? BSc, MBA, MSc, BBA, MBA, MCA, right? And similarly, if you get into the field of study, what do you see? What is the most popular field of study as per the audience in this session? Looks like the field of study most popular or the most frequent field of study as per this current subset, this sample is computer science once again. I'll show you the QR code in a second, Sumant. Just give me 2 minutes. All right. So I'll come back to that screen and you can share, you can fill the QR, like you can fill the form by scanning the QR code. All right. Now, what do you think about the work experience? Like how many people are working and how many are non-working? Like most of the crowd, is it working on or not working? Most of the crowd, think about it. Look at the plot properly and try to answer. See, if you try to focus here, currently pursuing education and completed the education and looking for job, these are non-working or current fresher or graduates, right? Whereas red color represents currently working. So you can clearly see that most of us are not working. Only few of us are working professionals. Now, what is this? This is nothing but the plot of how many months of work experience we have. There are few people who have mentioned 1 month of work experience. Few, they have mentioned 2 months of work experience. Maybe, what do you think about it? Anyone who can maybe there is a chance that these people, they were mentioning 1 year of work experience instead of saying 12. They must have mentioned one over here instead of years, like they were supposed to mention months, but they might have end up send us like mentioning the number of years. Now, the next question, what do you think about the Python programming skill set of most of the people? What do you think about the Python programming skill of most of the people? Intermediate, correct. Average, perfect. What about the machine learning skill? What about the machine learning skill of most of the individuals? Yes. Again, looks like that most of us, we have intermediate machine learning skills as well, which is a very nice thing for this webinar. All right, so I'll try to utilize that machine learning skill that most of you have, and I'll be able to make you understand like how machine learning is different from generative AI so that you have a clarity about it. Similarly, what about the generative AI skills? Looks like most of us are beginner in generative AI, right? Looks like 22% of us, we are completely unaware about generative AI. And most of us, we are completely beginner in generative AI. We might know that there exists some generative AI. We might know a little bit about generative AI, but looks like most of us are completely beginners in generative AI. Now, given that we have all these stats, now can we begin the workshop? See, it is very important for me to understand what skill sets you possess, right? Before we start the workshop so that I can plan the material accordingly. So let me try to come back to the whiteboard and let's start the discussion on generative AI. Just give me a second. All right. So before we begin our story of generative AI, again, let me remind you that in case if you want the certificate of this webinar, please make sure that you complete your registration by scanning this QR code. All right. And in case if you are done, we are good to go to start with the generative AI workshop. So in this workshop, the main agenda is going to be to make you understand what generative AI is. As per the current statistics, what do I know? I know that I know few of the things. What are these few things that I know about the audience? I know that most of us, when it comes to Python programming skills, we are at an intermediate level. We also know that for machine learning skills, most of us again are intermediate, right? This is as per the survey conducted, all right, for all the audience. And when it comes to generative AI, can you please remind me what was the generative AI like? Yes, the video is getting, this is getting recorded. The meeting is getting recorded. So people who have filled this form, you will get the video recording as well at the end of this workshop. Yes, most of us are beginner, right? Or we are unaware about generative AI. So the agenda of this workshop, agenda of this webinar is going to be to make you understand what generative AI is and navigate you through the entire landscape of generative AI. All right, so I'll help you, I'll guide you, I'll navigate you through the entire generative AI landscape, and I'll try to make you understand like what you need to do in order to learn generative AI as well. By the end of this entire session, you will have a very good understanding of what you need to do in order to become a generative AI expert and what is currently there in something called as generative AI field. All right, so let's begin our journey. The first thing is, please understand that in order to learn generative AI, how many of you know that there exists some prerequisites that you need to know before even jumping into generative AI? And what are these prerequisites? Do you agree that at least the basics of Python you must know in order to start your journey? Second thing, there are few important libraries that we must know in Python programming in order to start or in order to learn generative AI or in order to even get into the field of generative AI. Can you please tell me, can you please help me out understand what these important libraries are? Anyone who knows, like most of us are intermediate in Python. So can you guide me through what these libraries can be? What these libraries can be? Yes. NumPy pandas by default. NumPy pandas by default, right? Matplotlib Seaborn, this is for the plotting, right? And then there is something called as sklearn, right? So if you have a basic understanding of sklearn library, how to build the models using sklearn library, that will be very beneficial for you. And the last thing, last but not the least, is something called as, have you ever heard of something called as NLTK? Have you ever heard of something called as NLTK? So I'm trying to talk about, Sirisha, I'm talking about the bare minimum that you must know. All right. So there are so many things you can know, but I'm talking only about the bare minimum. All right. So if you have heard about NLTK, NLTK is a, yes, natural language toolkit, which is typically used for processing the text data. Right. Similarly, there is another library called as PIL. Have you ever heard of PIL library? Have you ever heard of PIL library? This is Python imaging library or Python image library, right? So what is the benefit of Python image library? Python image library is used for the pre-processing of image data. This is used for the pre-processing of text data, right? And this is very popularly used for something called as image data. What about this library? Can you please tell me what is the benefit or use of this library called as sklearn? What is the benefit of sklearn? The benefit of sklearn is, yes, machine learning algorithms. Machine learning algorithms are directly available for you to implement in this library. Second thing, it is not just machine learning algorithms. Some data, some core data preparation strategies are also available. Have you ever used something called as one-hot encoding, or you must have heard about one-hot encoding? You must have heard about something called as label encoding, ordinal encoding, right? So all these techniques are directly available inside this library called as sklearn. You can do basic data pre-processing or preparation using sklearn itself. No need to learn any other fancy library. If your work is to do basic data preparation, that can easily be managed using sklearn itself, along with building the models using machine learning algorithms. What about this library? What about this library that you see here? Or this library that you see here? Let's start with NumPy. What do you think about NumPy? What is the purpose of NumPy? What is the utility of NumPy library? Anyone? Yes, it is used for, yes, yes, array-oriented computation, right? So typically, this particular library is used for array-oriented computation. Array-oriented computation, right? What about pandas? What about pandas? What about pandas? Yes, in case if the data is structured, right? In case if the data is structured, when I say structured, can I say in tabular format? Can I say tabular format structured data? Yes, right? So when the data is structured or is in tabular format, you can apply a lot of data manipulation and data analysis using a library called as pandas. Structured data analysis can be done. Structured data, on the structured data, you can apply data analysis using pandas library. What about the Seaborn library? This provide you the visualization, right? So data analysis comes with non-visual data analysis as well as visual data analysis, and all your visual data analysis on the structured data can be done using a library called as Seaborn library. Everybody understood the benefits of using these libraries, various different libraries, which are like bare minimum that you must know in order to start your journey as a generative AI expert. All right. Or even if you want to start your journey of learning generative AI, you must learn or must go through these libraries. The next thing is, after learning Python basics and the important libraries, what else should you learn? You should also learn the basic machine learning or the bare minimum machine learning. When I say bare minimum machine learning, what does machine learning teach us? Machine learning teaches the techniques like how to build models using supervised learning, and how to build models using unsupervised learning, or how to do like data mining using unsupervised learning. Isn't it yes or no? Everybody is aware of it, right? Under supervised learning, you have something called as classification regression task. Whereas under unsupervised learning, what kind of tasks do you solve? You solve tasks like clustering, dimensionality reduction, recommendation systems, all these things, or I could say there is something called as clustering, there is something called as dimensionality reduction, right? These kind of tasks are majorly solved using unsupervised learning, whereas tasks like classification, regression can be solved using supervised learning. Any doubts till now? I will talk about what is classification regression in just a minute. But first, is this part clear to everyone? Are you all able to understand like what needs to be done in order to reach to a point where you can start understanding generative AI? All right. What about the next thing? You also need to understand something called as bare minimum of NLP and bare minimum of computer vision. When I say bare minimum of NLP, what do I mean by that? Can somebody throw some light on it in case if you already have some knowledge, basic knowledge about machine learning and NLP computer vision kind of tasks? What do you mean by bare minimum NLP and computer vision? You must know before getting into the generative AI stuff. Correct, Govardhan? So one thing that you must know is basic pre-processing. All right. So text and image pre-processing and image pre-processing. All right. You must know something called as basics of what is text processing and image processing. Plus, you should also know a very important technique, which is called as vectorization. Have you ever heard of something called as vectorization? How many of you are completely unaware of vectorization? If you are completely unaware, please mention that in the chat section so that I have a clarity and I can maybe utilize a simpler word for this particular term called as vectorization. Instead of calling it as vectorization, I'll start calling it something else. Okay, thank you so much, Lahari. I'll try to discuss. Okay, thank you so much, Shirisha. I'll discuss about that. Cool, perfect. See, do you all understand that in order to build, all right, so I'll come to what is meant by this entire thing, but let me try to give you a very simple idea here about what do you mean by the term vectorization. Do you agree that any algorithm, first of all, you need to understand this, any algorithm on this, in this machine learning, deep learning, generative AI landscape, every algorithm is internally written using some mathematical formulas. Are you all getting this idea? Is this at least clear that every algorithm internally has mathematical formulas implemented? How? That is a long journey you have to go through to understand what those mathematical formulas are. But please understand that every machine learning algorithm, deep learning algorithm, or generative AI algorithm internally has lots of mathematical formulas. Do you agree this looks like a mathematical formula y equal to x square? Everybody agrees that this looks like a mathematical formula? Perfect. Can you tell me what will be the value of y? What is the value? Is the value of y if x is equal to 1? Can you please tell me what will be the value of y if x equal to 1? Everybody can easily understand that, right? Y is going to be equal to 1 in case if x is equal to 1, because 1 square is equal to 1. What if x equal to 2 instead of 1, or maybe 3 instead of 1? What if x is equal to 3 in case, or 2, yes, 4 or 9. In case if it is 3, 3 square is going to be equal to 9. But what if I try to say that this x is not 3, x is not 2, x is something like Innomatics. Now, is it really possible to take a square of a text, a token like this? Have you ever seen in mathematics, like have you ever studied in mathematics, like squaring up something like a token? No, right? So what will happen in this case? It will simply throw an error. And what do you know about the text data or image data? Text data and image data they are non-numerical in nature. Now, if they are non-numerical in nature, how can you pass the text data to the algorithm or image data to the algorithm? How will you pass text data or image data to the algorithm? Anyone? Will it be really possible for you to pass the text data or image data directly to the algorithm? No, right? So what we have to do is we have to introduce a technique that can convert the text data, image data, or any non-numerical data to some numerical representation. And that technique is called as what? That technique is called as vectorization. Vectorization is a technique that takes non-numerical inputs and it converts that non-numerical inputs to some numerical representation. All your text can be represented numerically, all your images can be represented numerically using vectorization techniques. Now, is it making sense to all? Lahari, Sirisha, and others who were unable to understand what is the meaning of vectorization, is it now making sense like what vectorization really means? Perfect. So this is what vectorization typically means, all right? And in order for algorithms to work, algorithms need numerical representation because internally they implement some mathematical formulas. And I cannot pass the text data and image data directly to these algorithms. So what I must do is I must always convert the text data, image data to numerical representation. And the technique that performs this kind of an operation is called as a vectorization. And it is a very large topic, extensively very large topic, which needs a lot of time to learn and a lot of time to understand. A lot of people, they spend their entire careers improving the vectorization techniques out there. All right. And with generative AI, this has improved to a very high extent. I will discuss about it. Maybe not today. In the next webinar, we'll be discussing about that. But for now, try to understand that even the vectorization techniques have improved with a very high margin with the introduction to generative AI and the state of the art models that are out there right now. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Yes or no? All right. Now, once you have all this bare minimum knowledge, so what are all the things that I just told you? Can you please list down? Can you please help me list down all the things that you need to know before even starting generative AI journey? You need to know Python programming. You need to know basic Python programming. All right. You need to know something called as the libraries. What kind of libraries did I tell you? NumPy, Pandas, and maybe a visualization library like Seaborn. What is the next thing you must know? You must also know basics of machine learning, right? Apart from machine learning basics, what else should I know? I should know how to take text data and image data for data preparation or data pre-processing, right? Plus vectorization. If you have this much knowledge, if you have basic idea of all these things, when I say basic, you should be able to write some programs, you should be able to do some data and basic data analysis, you should be able to build basic NLP or computer vision projects. If you have all of this, understanding generative AI will be much more easier compared to somebody who doesn't have all these basics. If you don't have all these basics, please try to work on these basics, and then learning generative AI will be super duper easy. You will understand all of generative AI easily compared to a person who doesn't have any knowledge of the like prerequisites. So I can think of them as prerequisites. All right. So what about matplotlib? Yes, you can write it down, matplotlib. That is also completely fine. I just, in order to save some space, I just mentioned only the Seaborn, not the matplotlib. Is that fine? Shraddha, I hope I am able to answer your query. If you have no knowledge on all these things, still this webinar will make sense because we won't get into the core programming of generative AI. I'll try to show you some examples on how generative AI models look like and how the programming look like. I'll talk about that. Does linear algebra and statistic mandatory? Sasi, it is very important. Very, very important. And when I say basic of machine learning, I meant to say that you need to know at least the basic of linear. If you have basic knowledge of machine learning, means you have basic knowledge of linear algebra, and stats probability. Did that answer your question? Plotly, again, another library for plotting, right? So you can count it over here in this bucket. Sasi, did I answer your question? Shrikant, what is embedding? See, embedding is nothing but, see, there are two types of vectors. There are two types of numerical representations most popularly. All right. One type of numerical representation is going to be like, I'll try to put it in maybe a single line. I don't want to get into that. But please understand that sometimes these numerical representations are going to be something called as sparse. And there are much better techniques that can make these numerical representations more dense. They try to project these numerical representations into a latent space where these representations will be more dense. And there you have a like that vector is typically called as embedding, or that vector is typically called as this word called as embedding. Did that answer your question, Srikant? If not, please try to look into that. It is nothing but numerical representation only. Think of it as numerical representation. The word embedding means nothing but the numerical representation of text data or image data. Just for simplicity, I'm trying to put it in that way. Did that answer your question? What is generative AI? We'll come to that, Kavya. We'll talk about how is it different from other types of AI as well. All right. So I think you can see the second slide, next slide, right? So in this slide, we'll talk about that. Cool. So can we move forward? Yes, Sheetal, one hot encoding, word to vec, they all are nothing but vectorization techniques. Guys, can we move forward? Are you all able to understand till this point? Perfect. So the next thing we need to understand before even jumping into generative AI, see, this workshop is to make you understand what generative AI is. But I'll try to go a little before generative AI and make you understand, first of all, what AI is. All right. And we'll try to understand from there, and then we'll try to push forward towards generative AI to understand this entire field in much more easier way. All right. So when I say generate, like when I say artificial intelligence, when I say the word artificial intelligence, can somebody answer this question? What do you mean by AI? What is AI? Anyone who already knows about this? Anyone? What do you think AI is? Don't say artificial intelligence. That is just a full form of AI. Yes, perfect. Correct, Bhargavi. Correct, Sunil. Yes, perfect. Please try to understand that when I say artificial intelligence, all right, please try to understand that the word artificial means nothing but man-made. The word artificial means nothing but man-made. All right. We are talking about, in this situation, we are talking about a man-made intelligence. All right. What is the opposite of artificial? What is the opposite of artificial? Natural, right? What is natural? The meaning of natural is nothing but nature made. Right? So something which is naturally created is called as natural. But if something is created by human beings, that is called as nothing but man-made. For example, have you ever heard about a term called as artificial satellite? Have you ever heard about something called as a term called as satellite, artificial satellite? What is an examples of artificial satellites? What are the examples of artificial satellites? Anyone? Yes, correct. Mangalyaan. Yes, PSLV. Right? So all these are nothing but examples. I can put on like multiple different examples over here. In simple terms, can I say that all the satellites launched by NASA, ISRO, and other space agencies in the space, These satellites are called as nothing but artificial. Why do we call them as artificial again? Can you please remind me what is the reason why we call these satellites as artificial? Yes, because they are man-made satellites. On the other hand, do you also know that there is something called as natural satellite as well? There is a term called as natural satellite as well. Yes, all the moons, all the stars, all the planets, right? They are called as nothing but natural satellite. Do you agree that these artificial satellites created by us, what are they trying to do? How do you define an artificial satellite now? Can I say that artificial satellite is a satellite which is first of all man-made, which is first of all man-made, and second thing is it should mimic the behavior of what? Of natural satellite. I'm trying to create, yes, I'm trying to create something that imitates, that mimics the behavior of natural satellite. Guys, are you all able to understand the word natural satellite and artificial satellite now? Perfect. Now, I'll ask you one question, which is going to make a lot of sense to you. In order to understand the term called as AI, let's try to first understand the term called as natural intelligence. Can you give me some idea about what natural intelligence is? Human brain or humans, we are a very good examples of natural intelligence, right? Human brain. All our intelligence comes from brain, not moon. I'm not talking about natural satellite. I'm talking about natural intelligence now, right? So when I say natural intelligence, human brain or human mind is a very good example of natural intelligence. Now, if I can do something called as, if I can make something called as a machine that mimics, mimics what? Mimics the tasks done by human brain. If I can make a machine that can mimic the task done by human brain, what do I call that machine? What do I say that machine has? What do I say that machine has in that case? Yes, I can easily say that this machine has artificial intelligence. If I can somehow mimic the capabilities of human brain inside a machine, right? If I can imitate whatever tasks our human brains are capable of, if I can make a machine, right? Man-made machine. If I can make a machine that can mimic the behavior of humans' mind, I will call that machine that this machine has some AI. When I say AI, an intelligence that is created by humans. Everybody understood this part now? Like what is AI? Is it clear? Perfect. Now, if it is clear to all of you that what AI is, have you ever seen this graph or have you ever seen this kind of a diagram? I'm not creating an avocado. I'm just creating a diagram where I have AI in the first circle. In the second circle, I have machine learning. And in the third circle, I have deep learning. Can you tell me what is the name of this diagram? What do we call this diagram? Have you ever heard of something called as Venn diagram? Have you ever heard of something called as Venn diagram? Yes, in mathematics, you must have heard about Venn diagrams, right? Venn diagrams are created on inside a subject of mathematics called as sets, right? In sets, you must have heard about something called as Venn diagram. What does Venn diagram represent? Venn diagram represent the relationship between sets. Can I say the relationship explained over here is nothing but AI is or machine learning is a subset of AI and deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Can I say that this is what is really represented by this diagram? Is this diagram really helping me understand what AI is or what machine learning is? No, right? It is simply giving me a relationship. Venn diagrams are used to create or represent the relationship between sets. In this case, I'm trying to represent the relationship between AI, machine learning, and deep learning. Is everybody able to understand this? Are you all able to understand this? Yes, you can think of not exactly body, but you can say that they are the subset of machine learning and deep learning. All right. So the better word would be they are the subsets of machine learning and deep learning. Now, in order to create AI, in order to create AI, or in order to create a machine that can mimic, or in order to make a machine mimic the tasks done by human brain, what should you do? What should you study? You should study something called as machine learning. You should study something called as deep learning. In order to, so this is about making a machine mimic. Can I say natural intelligence? Yes or no? Is everybody able to understand this part? It is about making a machine mimic the natural intelligence, right? What is machine learning on the other hand? Machine learning is the real implementation of AI. All right. So it actually talks about how to make this happen. How to make this happen. How to make this happen. And in order to make this happen, where do we or what do we study? We studied something called as machine learning. We study something called as deep learning. Everybody understood this? In order to make machines mimic natural intelligence, we have to study something called as machine learning. And in order to in order to do it with much more accuracy, we have to also study something called as deep learning. Now, from the word, from the name itself, ML, which is nothing but machine learning. Can you tell me what is the meaning of machine learning? See, I'm talking about a machine learning. The word machine learning itself gives the hint what this is, right? It is the study. It is the study of making machines. You remember we were supposed to make machines mimic natural intelligence? You remember? AI was about making machines mimic natural intelligence. Now, with this natural intelligence, we human beings, what do we do with the natural intelligence? We human beings using the natural intelligence, we solve lots of tasks. We get capability to solve lots of complex tasks, right? So what I'm saying is I'm saying that if you can make machines mimic, making machines learn from the data or experiences, all right? It is a set, like it is a study of making machines learn from the data or experiences to solve complex tasks. Complex tasks as in the tasks that can be solved using natural intelligence. For example, let me take an example. Do you agree using your natural, since you are natural, you have natural intelligence? What is the example of natural intelligence we just saw? What is the example of natural intelligence we just saw? Human brain, right? Now, do you agree since we are intelligent enough? Do you agree? This is example. What is the task I solve using this human brain? Do you agree that we solve tasks like driving a car? Driving a car is very simple because we know like we have intelligence. We can maybe create content, right? We can create content. We can speak languages, right? We can speak languages properly. It is not just speaking languages properly. We can also translate. Do you agree with that? We can also translate one language to another. Now, do you agree in order to do all these tasks, what is required? It is required for the human brain to have natural intelligence, right? It is required for a human to be intelligent enough to solve, to do these tasks. How many of you agree with that? How many of you agree with that? Right? Some of these tasks might look very simple to you, but try to understand. Have you ever seen a dog driving a car? Have you ever seen a dog driving a car? Have you ever seen a dog creating a content? Have you ever seen a dog speaking languages or translating one language to another? And what is the reason why a dog or a monkey or an ant, right, or an insect, why can't they perform these tasks? Why can't they perform these tasks? Because they lack intelligence. Isn't it yes or no? Guys, are you all able to understand it? They lack intelligence, and because they lack intelligence, they lack a brain like human beings. It is impossible for them to learn these kind of complex tasks. You might take it for granted that you know how to do all these things, but it requires your brain to be intelligent enough to perform these tasks. Otherwise, what will be the difference between all these animals and human beings? Are you getting this? Is everybody getting this idea? Yes. Huh, that is big. See, they do not detect bombs. They only smell and try to identify those smells. They can only do something specific to what they can do, right? They can't do all the generic intelligent tasks. Definitely, dogs are one of the intelligent creatures, but they are not as intelligent as human beings. Have you ever seen a dog writing a code, writing a software, writing a program? Have you ever seen a dog creating art? No, right? And what is the reason for that? Because they don't have as good intelligence as human beings have. Are you getting it? So this is what we need to understand, right? So all these tasks, even though they look very simple, they require what? They require intelligence for us to solve these tasks. Yes. In movies, definitely you can see anything, right? So in movies, they will make possible each and every single thing that is not even going to happen ever. Now, the question is, the tasks that you see over here, who does these tasks using their intelligence? Who can solve these tasks using their intelligence? Humans, right? But what if I tell you, but what if I tell you that I can make a machine solve these tasks? Solve the tasks like driving a car? I can make a machine to learn how to drive a car. I can make a machine to learn how to create content. Create content. I can make a machine to learn how to speak languages. I can make a machine to translate a language to another language. What will I call that kind of a machine? What will I say that machine has? Can I say that machine has intelligence for sure if that machine can do these kind of tasks? Can I say that this machine definitely must have possessed some intelligence in order to perform these kind of tasks? Now, is that intelligence natural, or is it going to be artificially created or man-made intelligence? Definitely, this is going to be an artificial intelligence. Now, the question is, have you ever seen a machine ever do this kind of a task, driving a car? Have you ever seen this kind of a machine? Tesla is a very good example. Have you ever seen a machine, a computer create a content? Have you ever seen a machine create content? How many of you know how to use ChatGPT? Yes, correct, Bhaskar. Don't you think ChatGPT can create content for you? Yes, right. Is my voice clear to all of you? Can somebody please confirm if the voice is clear? Okay, so I think somebody mentioned Sumit. In case if the voice is not clear, please try to maybe rejoin the meeting or try to check if you have a correct working internet connection. Okay. Now, have you ever seen a machine speak languages? Have you ever seen a machine speak languages? Which machine have you seen? Tell me. Yes or no? Alexa, Siri, what they can do, they can yes, they can like speak to us the way human beings do. Similarly, have you seen a machine translate one language to another? We already must have seen, you must have seen something called as Google Translate, a very big example of translating one language to another. Now, Are they really using humans to solve these tasks, or are they using machines? All these companies, are they using machines or like humans to solve these tasks? What are they using? They are using machines, right? So if they are using machines to solve these tasks, definitely they have implemented artificial intelligence inside their systems, inside their machines, inside their computers to make machine do these tasks. Everybody understood this? Is everybody able to understand this? Now I want to ask you one question. Let's say if human has to do these tasks, let me create another page. Let's say human has to do these tasks, right? So I'll try to put it over here. Can you tell me, in order for a human to do these tasks, can a human, a newborn baby, do these tasks? Can a newborn baby do these tasks? What is the problem with a newborn baby? Why can't they do the task? Let's not worry about the physical limitations. Let's say there is a person who has all the physical power. Let's say the person who is somewhere around 18 years old, right? A kid who is 18 years old. What is the problem in that scenario? Yes, you need to learn, right? Learning is required. In order to do intelligent tasks, what I'm saying is, in order to do intelligent tasks, what is required? What is required for humans? Learning is required. Don't you think even machines needs to learn? If I want a machine, if I want a machine to do these tasks, don't you think even machine requires learning? And which area of data science or which area of computer science talks about teaching machines to do these tasks? Machine learning. You see where machine learning is now important? See, humans can do these tasks, but they have to definitely learn to solve these tasks before even starting to solve these tasks. Similarly, if you want a computer to do these tasks, even a computer has to learn. Even a computer has to learn. And what subject is going to, yes, accuracy is definitely required. And that is another area of study under machine learning called as evaluation of machine learning models. All right, we have to always train. See, for example, let's say I talk about a person. Do you agree for a intelligent task to be performed by a human? Learning is required. You just mentioned that learning is required. I can't just directly start driving a car. I need to first practice. I need to first learn to drive a car. How many of you agree with that? Before driving the car itself, I have to learn how to drive a car. I have to practice to drive a car. And before starting to drive the car on real time environments, on Indian roads or maybe on the highway, do you agree there must be somebody who should validate whether I have good driving skills or not? Do you agree that there should be somebody who should validate? Yes, I should follow the traffic rules. That is something I should do. But there should be somebody who should validate. And have you ever seen that we get something called as licenses, driving licenses? Getting a driving license is a verification, is a evaluation, is nothing but something like a test of an individual to check whether the individual really knows how to drive a car or not. If you have a driving license, then only you are really supposed to actually drive the car on the highway or on the roads. Otherwise you can't drive it. It is not legal at all. Do you all agree with that? Yes. Do you all agree with that? Yes or no? It is like an authentication. It is like a evaluation of somebody who knows how to drive a car, to actually verify, to actually validate whether he should really drive a car on the roads or not. There is something called as driving license. Same way, in machine learning, there is something called as evaluation. We need to first train the machine to do the tasks, and then we have to also evaluate. After the learning has happened, the evaluation plays a very vital, very important role. Without evaluation, you can't simply put your machine learning models in production or in real time scenarios. Now the question is, for a human being to learn, what do we require? Do you agree we require a lot of, like, somebody who can teach us from their experiences? Do you agree, as a human, we need to take inputs in the form of experiences? Somebody will share their experiences, maybe your brother or maybe father or your sister who already know how to drive a car. They will help you to understand like how actually the car is driven, right? And based upon that, you will use your brain to capture all those things and you will learn how to drive a car. You'll practice and you will learn how to drive a car. Same way, when it comes to computers, when it comes to machines, how is experience passed to a machine? In the form of a data, right? What I can do, I can pass a lot of data, experiences to a computer, and I can expect the computer to learn. But is the computer really capable of learning by its own? No. There is something called as algorithms. There are a lot of algorithms, computer algorithms, machine learning algorithms that are available out there, which can make your computers learn from this data. And that learning is called as model. This is called as learning process for a computer in machine learning. Any confusions for now? Any confusions? Is this making sense to all of you? Shraddha, is it making sense? Pooja, is it making sense? Bhaskar, is it making sense? Are you all able to understand what is getting discussed? Yes? Perfect. So what I'm saying is, again, what I'm saying is, I'm saying that in order for a computer to learn, in order for a machine to learn, I need to learn, right? And in order to learn, I need data. You will learn from the data, right? You will learn from the experiences. And what will really make a computer to learn from the data? What is the main ingredient that makes a computer to learn from the data? Machine learning algorithms are designed in such a way that they can take the data and learn something from the given data. Everybody understood this? Everybody understood this? All right. No. We don't call that algorithm as a model. We call the learning as a model. So see, we call learning as the model. Whatever comes as an output from the algorithm is called as a model. The learning from, see, you will use this data, you will pass this data to machine learning algorithms, correct, Shraddha? Algorithms will use a lot of formulas to extract something from that data. And that extracted something is called as a model. The pattern will be learned from the data. That will be captured inside a variable in a computer called as a model. All right. In a computer, a variable will store the model, which is nothing but captured from the given data. And depending upon the algorithm, model can be anything. It can be a memory, it can be a program, it can be other things as well. All right. So it depends upon what kind of a machine learning algorithm you are using to build that. Yes, model. I should not say model learns from the data. I should say machine learning algorithm learns from the data and generates a model. All right. Yes, those weights are stored inside the variables. Correct, Sasi. Any questions so far? Can you please give a rating on a scale of 1 to 5? One being you are unable to understand anything, 5 being you are able to understand everything. Not understanding. Understanding. How do you rate yourself for now? Like, are you able to understand whatever is getting discussed so far? We'll come to that, but first let's try to, Shraddha, first let's try to complete the workshop, this webinar, to make you understand what generative AI is. All right, perfect. This seems really good. Can we move forward then? Can we move forward and try to have a look at some examples of machine learning? All right. So these are few traditional machine learning examples. All right. Do you remember that I told you that I will use something called as data? And using this data, what I'll do, I'll try to use some machine learning algorithms to get the model. Isn't it yes or no? You remember that? Now, what I can do with this model is, what I can do with these models is, I can solve various different tasks. And traditional machine learning and deep learning was majorly about solving these type of tasks. For example, given an image like this, can you detect whether this is an apple or an orange? What do you think this is? What do you think this image represents? What do you think this image represents? An apple or an orange? Yes, an apple, right? And how are you able to understand it? Because your mind has the intelligence to understand what an apple look like, right? You are not saying that this is an orange or some other fruit. You are able to clearly understand that this looks like a apple. So what I have to do is, can you tell me what should I do in this case in order to make machine learn from this data? In order to, or how do I create a model that can actually predict whether, or that can actually identify whether this is the apple or an orange? Do you agree that I have to show machine lots and lots of images? Should I show this machine lots and lots of images of apple and oranges, apple images and orange images. And what should this machine do? This machine should take some algorithm. I should run some algorithm on top of it. And this will generate a model that knows how the apple looks like, a model that knows how the orange looks like. So that whenever an apple or orange image is shown to this model, it can easily predict whether it is an apple or an orange. Everybody understood? This is one of the computer vision tasks that we solve very like heavily in the industry. Guys, are you all able to understand this? Everybody understood like how I created this model? I will create this model by taking, first of all, lots and lots of images. And then I will pass all these images, all this data. Where will I pass this data? The data will be passed to a machine. And what should I run on this machine? I should run some machine learning or deep learning algorithm on this machine to generate a model. What will this model be capable to do in the future, or in the on some data sets? It will be able to tell whether this is a image of apple or is this a image of orange. This is what traditional machine learning used to look like before generative AI came into existence. We were able to earlier, we were able to create models that can tell you yes, no kind of a stuff, models that can tell you apple, oranges kind of a stuff, apple, oranges kind of a stuff, models that can tell you, have you ever seen that your email accounts which are created on Gmail, have you ever seen in your Gmail, there is something called as inbox and there is something called as spam box? What is the difference between inbox and spam box on a Gmail? On your Gmail account, what is the difference between inbox and spam box? Anyone? What is the difference between inbox and spam box on your Gmail account? Yes, spam emails, right? Spam, unwanted emails, harmful, unwanted emails, they automatically lands into the spam box. Whereas all the important emails, they land up inside the inbox. Do you agree? What I can do is I can take lots and lots of emails that are, some of them are spam emails, and some of them are important emails. And what can I do with this entire data? What should I do with this entire data? Can I pass all of this data to a machine? Can I pass all of this data to a machine and maybe run some algorithm to build a model? What will be the capability of this model? The model's capability will be to understand what kind of an email is a spam and what kind of an email is an important email. What kind of an email is an unwanted email versus what kind of an email is an important email. Again, this model can be used later I can use this kind of a model later, given any email. I can use this kind of a email, this kind of a model to tell whether this email is a spam or not spam. If I can do that, I can automate the process of this Gmail account to automatically put the emails, incoming emails, either in this box or in this box. Do you all agree with that? Everybody is able to understand this, right? So what is this? Don't you think this is again another intelligent model, and another intelligent model that is without any human supervision, which can easily identify whether a given email is a good email or a bad email, and based upon that, it is categorizing and putting them in a proper place, so that I as a human, I can save up a lot of time. Yes, right. So this is what this is how machine learning is getting used, and traditional machine learning has been used majorly in the industry. It was used to solve these kind of problems, like categorizing whether the data point belongs to yes category or no category. Is this data point belonging to apple category or a orange category? Is this data point belonging to spam category or a not spam category? So all these things used to happen earlier, spam versus not spam. This is what used to happen earlier. But now the entire landscape of artificial intelligence has shifted towards what? Towards generative AI. Everybody understood this part? Yes. Any doubts here? See, if this is clear, then making sense of other aspects of generative AI will become very simple. Can I say that? Can I say that before we get into the generative AI? Can I say that I'm sharing my screen? Just give me a second. All right. So is it fine now? The voice quality and the screen sharing, like, is it properly visible and audible? All right. Perfect. So let's proceed forward. I was talking about something called as generative AI, like AI shifting from the traditional machine learning, deep learning to generative AI. Now the question is, what is the difference? Most of us are confused with the major difference between how traditional machine learning and generative AI are different, right? Yes or no? So let me try to first of all make you understand that difference. Please understand that the traditional machine learning, when I say traditional machine learning, it majorly talks about tasks like the one I showed you above. Can you tell me what is common between these three tasks? What is common between these three tasks? Let me try to copy this and let me try to bring in to the next slide. All right. So what is common between all these tasks? I'm not considering this task at all. Let me consider only these tasks. Yes, correct. If you see, if you carefully observe, all these tasks are about a model telling whether a data point, whether a given data point, given input, right? So let me try to draw this also carefully, right? So all these are inputs. This is input here, this is output here, this is input here, this is output here, this is input here, this is output here. Can you tell me what kind of a output are you getting in all these three cases? You are getting a categorical output, right? Can I say category or categorical output? Categorical output. In the first case, model only tells you yes or no. In simple terms, whether a given image is an apple or not an apple and an orange. In the second case, the model is simply telling you whether a given input, whether a given input is the iris setosa, maybe something like a versicolor, right? So these are the two species of iris flower. So what is this model telling you? Again, the model is giving you two outputs, yes and no, whether it is Setosa or not. If it is not Setosa, it will be versicolor. What about the next example? Again, this model is giving you two outputs. Is the email spam or is the email not spam? Something like yes and no. So in all the scenarios, the output that I'm showing you here, this output is categorical output in nature. Are you all getting this idea? On the other hand, what do you think about input? Can you tell me what is the input here? Is it a categorical input, a numerical input, or an image input? What do you think about it? Image input, right? It looks like an image input. What about the next example? What about the next example? Again, it looks like an image input, right? It can be an image input or maybe some numerical values of this flower. What about the last input? What about the last input? Looks like this is going to be text in nature. Is everybody able to understand this part? Yes or no? But if you try to focus on the output, inputs are images, but output is a similar kind of an output, right? In all the cases, you are getting a categorical output, and categorical output. These kind of models are very popularly called as classification model. Classification models. Everybody understood this? Similarly, there is another type of task. Under traditional machine learning, there is another type of task. Let's say somebody comes to me with their house and they tell me that their house SFT, the square footage of their house is maybe, let's say, 1500 SFT. They are telling me that the number of bedrooms in their house are maybe 2. And based upon this, I have to create a model, let's say, and this model should be able to tell me what should be the price of the house. Can you tell me what is the output of this model? Is the output image? Is the output text? Is the output categorical or is the output numerical in nature here? Correct. It looks like a numerical output, right? What about the input? What about the input? What about the input here? Input also looks like numerical. Let me try to add one more input, maybe locality. Locality may be something like KPHB. This is one of the places in Hyderabad. All right. So let me try to put that locality here. Now, if you try to look at the input, can I say that it looks like that input is a collection of numerical values and categorical values? This could have been something like maybe high-tech city. This could have been something like maybe Mirzapur, something like any other locality, right? And many more values, categorical values could have been kept over here inside this locality part, right? These are numerical, these are categorical in nature. But output here is numerical. So any model for which the output comes to be numerical, that kind of a model is called as what? That kind of a model is called as a regression model. Yes, correct. Everybody understood this? So what are the two tasks I just showed you? What are the two tasks I just showed you? I showed you a task called as, this task is called as, all these tasks are called as classification task. And this task is called as regression task. Any questions so far? Are you able to understand the two types of tasks? Are you all able to understand the two types of tasks? Kavya will come to that. Regression means a model that outputs a numerical value. You have learned a model and that model is capable of generating, it's not generating, but outputting or like creating or approximating a numerical value. Yes, continuous numerical value. I'm talking about a continuous numerical value, a real number. All right. Over here, I'm talking about categorical outputs. In this case, I'm talking about numerical outputs. If I can learn a model in machine learning, what does machine learning talks about? Do you remember machine learning talks about learning from the data? from data using what? Using algorithms, right? You have data, you pass it to a machine. Machine will use an algorithm to learn or to generate a model. What I'm saying is these models, they can either generate categorical outputs or they can generate numerical outputs. In case if they generate numerical output, I'll call that as regression model. Otherwise, in case if they generate categorical output or they give categorical output, I'll call that as classification model. Everybody understood this? Yes, the model that is learned, that is created by the algorithm from the given data. Is that answer, like, does that answer your question, Pujita? Sorry, Pooja. Anurag, is your query clear? So how is generative AI different from machine learning? Traditional machine learning versus generative AI. Remember that in traditional machine learning, I discussed about the models that can generate, that can create, that can output categorical values, models that can output numerical values. Isn't it yes or no? On the other hand, when I say generative AI talks about creating models that can generate text, models that can generate images, models that can generate videos, models that can generate speech. Are you able to understand the difference now? Yes, correct. Do you see that in this scenario, in the traditional machine learning, the models were only capable to tell yes and no kind of situations? They were able to simply answer questions like yes and no, spam and not spam, apple oranges, these kind of things. They were able to also maybe like give a numerical output based upon the given input, right? Some numerical output may be something like 45 lakh Indian rupees for maybe a house property or something. All right. Similarly, when we talk about generative AI, over here, given an input, model will generate the output, which is a text. Model will generate an output, which is an image. Model will generate an output, which is a video, or model will generate an output, which is a speech. Is everybody able to understand, first of all, the difference between the traditional machine learning and generative AI? Da Vinci is discontinued, Joseph, by OpenAI. Da Vinci was used earlier by OpenAI. That was one of the models generated by a company called as OpenAI, which is currently discontinued. It is a legacy model. You can find it on OpenAI's website. Guys, are you all able to understand this? Yes or no? If this is making sense, then we'll jump to the major part for this session, and you'll be able to now understand the entire context. Yes, even see, can I say the text can be something like Hindi, English, Telugu, or even a code, right? A program, right? Isn't it? I can say even a code is nothing but a text output. The program is nothing but a text output. Python program or C++ or maybe some script, it is nothing but a text output. Are you all able to understand this? Krishna, yes, they depend on machine learning and deep learning. But understand that in the traditional machine learning, majorly we used to discuss about something called as discriminative models. These models were discriminative in nature, whereas these models are generative in nature. They are generative in nature. Right? So they are able to generate human-like text. They are able to generate real images. They are able to generate real videos and human-like speech. They are able to generate. Are you able to understand it? AGI is a completely different concept that is not at all related to generative AI. Generative AI is one step further into the AGI, but not exactly the same. All right, we are way too far from AGI. Uh, okay. Now, please try to focus over here. Guys, can you please, first of all, rate yourself like on a scale of 1 to 5, how well did you understand this part? Like, what are the traditional machine learning like approaches versus generative AI approaches? Perfect. So, do you remember I told you few examples before? You remember I told you that humans can do something called as content writing, content generation, content writing. Can you please tell me whether content writing will come in the traditional machine learning approach or will it come in the generative approach? Where will it come? What if I want a model to generate or to create content for me? Yes, perfect. Right. So let's say I want the model to generate the content. What if I want to create a model that can do something like translation for me? What about this model? Translation comes under traditional machine learning or generative? Correct. It comes again under generative because I'm saying that given an input, maybe English text, I want to convert it into Hindi, or maybe I want to convert it into Chinese, or maybe I want to convert it into maybe Punjabi, Telugu, something, right? So whatever I want to convert one language, like whenever I want to convert one language to another language, again, this falls under something called as generative AI. I believe all of you are able to understand this. Perfect. So can we move forward? Let me give a proper definition to generative AI. Can I say that? Can I say that generative AI is nothing but a subdomain of AI? Yes, we can use transformers and BERT. I'll show you one example, a simple example for that. But for now, is this making sense that generative AI is nothing but again a subset of AI, where a model, you remember, I told you about the models that can be learned from the data using algorithms. What are they tasked to do? They are tasked to generate human-like text or images or audios or videos, etc. Can I say that? Can I say this? Are you all able to understand that this is what generative AI model means? So can you please tell me what this output can be in case of generative AI model? If this model is a generative AI model, what can be this output? Can I say this output can be a human-like text? Can I say that this output can be a natural, a real image? Can I say that this output can be a video, an audio, a speech, right? Now, the question is, have you ever heard about prompt engineering? Have you ever heard about prompt engineering? You must have heard about it, a very popular term, right? You know what is a prompt? Prompt is nothing but the input to these generative AI models. Whenever you use a generative AI models, the input to that model is called as a prompt. The term prompt means nothing but input to a generative AI model. Given an input, if the output looks something like this, it is nothing but yes, the prompt engineering is nothing but the art or engineering to update your prompt in such a way that your outputs are good quality outputs. All right. So if you are not careful while giving the input to the generative AI model, your outputs can be completely a disaster, right? So if you want your outputs to be really good, good quality, you have to make sure your prompts are very good in quality as well. Please remember in machine learning and AI, there is a very good saying. Yes, garbage in, garbage out. Have you ever heard about this? Garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't want an output to be a garbage, you have to make sure your input should not be a garbage. When I say input should not be a garbage, what comes into the picture here? Your good prompt engineering skills come into the picture here. Everybody understood this? Everybody understood this? Yes or no? All right. So are you all able to understand that one of the applications of generative AI can be something like text generation? And you must have seen something called as Google's autocomplete. Have you ever seen something called as Google's autocomplete? In Google autocomplete, what have you seen? Whenever you start writing some text, maybe something like good, have you ever seen it will automatically start showing you in very light color an autocomplete feature where it will start saying, do you want to say morning? Right. So if you select a tab, it will automatically put morning over there instead of simply keeping it blank. You don't have to write the entire thing yourself. Nowadays, these autocomplete outputs are generated by Gmail and many other systems, which is nothing but one of the very good generative AI application. Yes, even in Google Colab, this comes nowadays with that generative AI feature, right? Similarly, you remember somebody was talking about code crafting or writing a code, right? Yes, this GitHub Copilot is one of the examples of Google, like code crafting. What is the example of language translation? What is the example of language translation? The Google's Translate, Google Translate, right? What is the example of content creation? ChatGPT. Are you all able to understand this? See, self-drive cars, they require a lot of traditional models internally, Pooja. All right. So it is not only the generative AI part. All right. So it also requires a lot of traditional models. All right. So how a self-drive car can be created, or how can you create a software that can actually take a decisions on in a self-drive car? Please try to go through it yourself, because that is not the part of this particular workshop over here. Okay. So please try to just Google it out. You'll get lots of resources on it. All right. Now, code crafting. See, code crafting means nothing but, let's say you are trying to write a code. Nowadays, there are systems that can actually create code for you as well as debug code for you. Right. For example, Google, GitHub's Copilot. GitHub has a Copilot that can actually do that code crafting for you. Did that answer your question, Govardhan? Yes. All right. So before moving forward, let me try to talk about some of the most popular generative AI, text generation companies that have created generative AI models, which are very, very popular for text generation. Have you heard of all these three company names? Have you heard of all these three company names? OpenAI, Google, and Meta. All right. So what they have done is they have created their own generative AI model. OpenAI's generative AI model is called as GPT. Google's generative AI model is called as Gemini. And Meta's generative AI model is called as Llama. Have you heard of these three models as well? Have you ever heard of these names as well? These are generative AI models. Generative AI models. Guys, are you all able to understand this? Similarly, you remember the image output can also be generated, right? Image, video, all these things can also be generated. For example, let's say you want to create a PPT, or you want to create an art, or you want to create a marketing campaign for advertisements, right? Or maybe you want to do something called as enhancing the images, right? So all these things can be done. For example, let's say you want to take your photo, right? You want to take your photo and pass it to a model. And what you have to do is you want to maybe do something like convert my photo to maybe an 80-year-old photo. Maybe you must have seen, like, you can create photos which looks old, or you can basically see how you will look when you are 80 years old, right? So what is the output of this model? The output is image for this model, right? So these kind of applications you must have seen a lot of time in Snapchat and various different applications, right? So they use something called as generative AI models to convert your images to these types of images. All right, so this is called as enhancing the image. In painting is a different concept. I'll try to discuss about what in painting means in some time, but I'll try to circle out these names. What are these names? These are company names which are doing really well when it comes to generative AI models in the space of image generation. Guys, are you all able to understand this? And what is the generative AI model name from OpenAI? The generative AI model name from OpenAI is DALL-E, right? From Google, they have created a generative AI image model called as Image Gen. The word image gen means nothing but image generation, right? And Stability is another company which has created a model called as Stable Diffusion, which is current state of the art model in the space of generative AI. Guys, are you all able to understand this? Is this part also making sense, yes or no? Perfect. Now, how many of you are wondering like how to create these generative AI models? Merlin AI, I think that is like a multi-model system, right? So it simply helps you solve various different tasks. We'll discuss about it maybe towards the end. But let's first try to complete the content of this workshop. Then we'll come to that, Joseph. All right. That's what I'm asking now. So you must be wondering now how to create these models. Can you tell me how to create the models that we have seen in traditional machine learning? In traditional machine learning, do you remember how to create the models? Anyone who can remind me on how to create the models? What do you require in order to create a model in case of like as per the traditional machine learning? You need data, isn't it? You remember? We need data. Where should I pass the data? I should pass the data to a computer. On the computer, what should I run? Do you remember what should I run on the computer? What is the main ingredient here? An algorithm. What will algorithm do? Algorithm will take the data as input and generate what as the output? The model will be generated as an output. Everybody remembers this? Everybody remembers this? We already completed this part, right? You know how a generative AI model is constructed? How these companies, like all these companies and all these companies, they created their own generative AI models which can do text generation as well as image generation. You want to see now? All right, so let me try to show you how that can be done. How do you create a generative AI model? Now, in this case, you don't just need data, you need huge amounts of data. Over here, you don't just need algorithms, you need scalable algorithms to process this huge amounts of data. All right. And these algorithms are going to develop models for you. Is there something else missing? And that is yes, again, there is something else missing. There is something called as a modeling task. For text generation model, for text generation models, like, can you please remind me what were the text generation model names? You remember the text generation model names? GPT, Gemini, and there was one more I mentioned above. What was the last one? Llama. Perfect. Right? For Llama, GPT, and Gemini, what kind of a task do you have to make your scalable algorithm over here do? Your algorithm should be able to do a task of regression or classification, neither, right? It should not do regression classification task. It should help you solve something called as language modeling task. Right? So In case of traditional machine learning and deep learning, we used to make these algorithms do something called as regression and classification task on the data. But now on this huge amounts of data, I'll use some scalable algorithms to do something called as language modeling task, which requires lots of compute power, lots of time as well. All right. For image generation models, can you tell me the name of these models? What were the name of these models? Like, yes, Delhi. What was the other model? Image gen. And the last model was stable diffusion. So what kind of a task these algorithms must do in that case? They should do something called as diffusion modeling task. Joseph, mid journey, do you agree that mid journey is what does mid journey do? It takes some input, and what does it generate? What does it generate, Joseph? It generates images, right? Yes. So what will it come under? Will it come under the 3A or 3B? Where will it come? Will it come under 3A or 3B? 3B, right? So what kind of a task your algorithm must be able to perform? In that case, your algorithm must be able to perform something like a diffusion modeling task or a diffusion task in order to basically create a model that can actually help you generate the images. Did that answer your question, Joseph? All right. So now moving further, there is one big problem. I mentioned small, but it is a big, big, big problem here. You know what is that big problem? Stable Diffusion is a model from Stability AI. Stability AI is a company. Stable Diffusion is a model from them. You know what is the problem? Since I discussed that there is going to be huge data, huge amounts of data, which will go to a computer that will use some algorithm to generate a model. What will be the speciality about this model? Is it going to be a traditional model or a generative AI model? What will be the speciality of this model? In this case, it will be a generative AI model. You know what is the problem with this? Do you agree algorithm will simply process, crunch, or learn from this data? Algorithm will learn from this data, isn't it? Yes or no? If the data is huge, won't it take more time and memory? Will it not take more time and memory? Do you think that this will happen? Yes or no? Yes, right? So it is definitely going to happen. And I told you about one of the models called as GPT. I told you about one of the model called as GPT from OpenAI. You know how much time will it take for GPT to train? If you do that training on your home computer, or your computer using which you are attending this webinar, if you use GPT, like if you want to train your own GPT on this kind of a computer, it will take lots of time and memory. This is what I'm claiming, right? You know how much time will it take? In order to train GPT, the version 3, there were some estimates. Based upon that, they came out with some estimates, approximation, that your home computer, your simple desktop computer, even if it is gaming, it will take up to 355 years to train something like GPT-3, which was created by OpenAI company. Isn't it uh, very expensive in terms of time and memory? Like, at least in terms of time, you might be able to see how much time it will take. You will simply collect lots of data, give it to a computer, which will run an algorithm to generate a model, a generative AI model. And how much time will it take? 355 years. right? So your like it won't be possible for you to see this kind of a model in a single lifetime. It will take up to 3 to 4 lifetimes to train this kind of a model. Can somebody suggest a solution for it? Quantum computers, correct. But for quantum computers, what do you need? What is the solution? The quantum computer is a solution, but for that, what do you need? Pre-trained models? No, I'm talking about the solution. Even pre-trained models, see, even if you use powerful architecture, powerful algorithms and powerful architecture, when I say powerful architecture, you need computers which are very, very, very powerful, right? Parallel training. Yes, you can engineer your training as much as you can. High-end GPUs, but what it takes to buy those high-end GPUs, what it takes to buy quantum computers, what it takes to buy NVIDIA chips, what it takes to buy all of that. Don't you think the solution to it is going to be nothing but lots of money? Are you all able to understand this? Are you all able to see this? Right? If you want to save time and if you want to save lots of, if you want to have the flexibility to save a lot of time and memory, you definitely need to invest a lot of money in buying supercomputers, lots of supercomputers. Are you all able to understand it? Right? And one small example, as per the articles that I've read, there was some estimates on how much. You remember I told you about a company, Stability AI, which created a stable diffusion model, right? You know how much they spent to create a stable diffusion model? If they have to create stable diffusion model, it will take a huge amount of time. But they spent money, they burnt money, they bought supercomputers, they bought very expensive architecture, cloud servers. Yes, they bought all of that in order to make it possible. And how much money it took for them to build that model? It was approximated to somewhere around 600,000, 6 lakh dollars. 600,000, or you can say 6 lakh US dollars. Is that a small amount of money? No, right? It is super duper expensive. Yes. And this is a reason why, see, OpenAI has lots of money. Google has lots of money. Meta has lots of money, right? Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, they have lots of money. And that is a reason why their models are becoming very popular. Why are their models becoming very popular? Their models are becoming very popular because they have money to burn. They have money to invest in the training of these complex models. Guys, are you all able to understand this? So will it be possible for you to build your own model? What do you think now? If you want to really do an experiment of building your own model, a generative AI model, I'm not saying the traditional model, but generative AI model, will it be really possible? It might be possible, but it will take lots of time and it will take lots of memory. You have to you have to spend lots of money to, first of all, get good computers, and you have to spend a lot of time training on huge amounts of data on that computer. Guys, are you all able to understand this? Yes. Joseph, is it clear? Lahiri, is this clear? Right? There is a trade-off, right? So if you have money, you can buy the computers, you can buy the architecture that requires you to build these kind of generative AI models very fast. All right. Otherwise, if you don't have money or if you don't want to spend money, you please try to spend hundreds, 300s of years in order to build these models. Yes, we are going to learn the practical parts. For sure, we are going to learn the practical parts on how to build these models. You will understand that, you will learn that as well. How these algorithms are created, everything will be discussing in this course of generative AI, which is starting on July 1st. Everybody understood it? Now, the question is, uh, can we take some examples of applications, popular applications that are powered by generative AI? There are many, but I've mentioned few of them. For example, one is called as GitHub Copilot. We already discussed about that earlier during the discussion, right? There is something called as 10 Web IO. What it does, it um, it is a AI which helps you create websites. So if you are a founder, a CEO, or a person who is at a managerial position, you can actually use this AI powered tool in order to create the websites without having any knowledge on how to create the websites. Similarly, what is Jasper AI? Jasper AI is a marketing AI marketing tool. AI marketing tool. Even though you are a little weak at marketing, if you know the basics of marketing, you can utilize this tool in order to basically run very sophisticated marketing pipelines. Chat PDF, it is again AI powered tool that can help you answer questions or queries from PDF documents. If you have a PDF document, maybe a research paper or anything, and you want to, instead of going through that entire document manually yourself, what you can do, you can simply utilize something called as chat PDF, and it can help you like answer those questions by default. All right. So that AI actually helps you answer the questions of any questions, answer those questions, whatever you ask to the tool called as chat PDF. And at the last, GitHub Copilot, what it does, you can go to any of these websites and figure it out. All right, so I'll show you with a demo. What is this? This is nothing but AI powered developer tool. All right, let me just quickly show you that. Is everybody able to see my desktop screen? All right, so what was the first website I told you? What was the first website I told you? 10 Web IO, right? 10 Web IO. You see what this is? This is an AI powered platform that helps you launch and grow your business. When I say help us launch and grow our business, what are the capabilities they provide? They provide AI website builder, they provide AI e-commerce, they provide AI assistant, and many more things. Is that making sense to all? Right. So how this works, you please try to experiment yourself, like how you can use AI to build the websites or e-commerce platforms or AI assistant. How can you use all these things? See, they also have an AI business name generator. All right. So they also have this on their platform. You can basically utilize this to launch a business end to end. But what if you want to market your business? What if you want to run advertisements? What if you want to run campaigns? For that, you have something called as Jasper AI. Yes. Right. So it is a marketing tool that helps you run all your marketing efforts. You can do that using Jasper AI. Right. For example, let's say, let me go to the features. You see, the core features are you can basically run the campaigns, brand voice, chat, art, security, and many more things you can do using this particular tool. You can have a look at their pricing as well if you want. But these tools are very expensive. I won't like ask you to look into these tools and get the like paid versions. I'm just showing you how AI is actually impacting our day-to-day lives by introducing so many nice features by these companies. Similarly, what if you have a document and you want to maybe answer some questions on the document? You go to chatpdf.com. right? If you see chat with any PDF, this is nothing but you drop your PDF document here, you ask a question, it will simply answer that question based on some AI, generative AI model running behind. It will go through the entire document that you have posted here, and it will answer the questions that you ask. Similarly, there is something called as GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot. The website is github.com/features/copilot. What is this? This is nothing but AI for developers, right? So you can do a lot of stuff. Let me try to scroll down. See, it helps you increase the productivity as a developer and accelerate the pace of software development. How will it help you accelerate the software development pace? By helping you write the code, right? So it helps you write the code. It helps you, like, even if you are naive at code programming, you can easily utilize this in order to write very sophisticated, very complex code. Are you all able to understand this, guys? You remember I told you code crafting. You can do that code crafting, or you can do the code writing using this particular GitHub Copilot. Again, you have to pay some price for it because this is something which is very popular nowadays in the market. Are you all able to understand like these various different tools? Are you able to see these various different tools? Right? So for every thing out there nowadays, there is one tool that can actually help you, some AI powered tool that can actually help you solve your problems. There are many generative AI applications nowadays. You must have seen Apple Intelligence has come, right? So Apple Intelligence, what is that? That is nothing but a generative AI model running in the background, solving a lot of problems in Apple's product, right? So you must have heard about that. So that is again another generative AI stuff. Now, before ending this workshop, I'll give you a small roadmap on what needs to be learned if you want to see yourself become a generative AI engineer, because this is something which is booming currently at a very high space. Is there any security issue with Apple Intelligence collab with OpenAI? There may be, there may not be. That depends on how Apple actually design their architecture internally and how their wrappers are created, which actually interact with OpenAI. It depends completely on their the way they have designed the wrappers that actually interact, the APIs that actually interact at their end with the OpenAI APIs. All right. So if there is a leak from their end, definitely there will be security issues. OpenAI can actually get a lot of data that they are not even supposed to see from an Apple user's end. But they must have done some collaboration, something in order to prevent that from happening. Definitely, Apple must have done something. But again, it is a software product. There can be leak from Apple's end in case if they are not careful enough. So even here, there are evaluation techniques. What are those evaluation techniques? If you really want to get into that, that is a very big and most challenging part of generative AI. All right. So yes, the notes will be provided. If you are like taking up Innomatics course on generative AI, definitely you will be getting the notes and all. So, okay. So Arpit, so if you try to see, this is a kind of a roadmap that you need to learn in order to become a generative AI expert. All right. And this is something even at Innomatics we deliver for our generative AI, advanced generative AI course, advanced generative AI course. So we have our own advanced generative AI course, which is launching on July 1st. So if you are interested to do that course from our end, this is how the roadmap is going to look like. This is how the flow is going to look like. We'll give you a proper introduction to generative AI with some prerequisites. We expect you to have these prerequisites, but A little bit on prerequisites we'll be discussing, at least the basic prerequisites we'll be discussing maybe during the first week of generative AI course. After the prerequisites are discussed, then we'll try to make you understand how generative AI models, like there is something called as large language models, and there is something called as diffusion models, how they can be created, or how or what maths goes behind creating large language model algorithms and diffusion model algorithms. We'll discuss about that during this particular part. Once that is done, you remember I told you that once the model has been constructed, you also need to have very good skills in prompt engineering. You have to know how to write an effective prompt to get a good result from the model. And that is what will be discussed during the prompt engineering phase. Will help you understand like how to design good prompts for both text models as well as image models. It's not just for the text models. Prompt engineering nowadays on internet, people will only be talking about the text-based models like ChatGPT, but we'll also be discussing about how to design good prompts even for the diffusion models, like image-based models, how to do prompt engineering for that as well. It is not just this. You remember I told you about Chat PDF? You remember chatpdf.com? It was one of the applications that has attracted like millions of users. In this session, in this topic, we'll be discussing about how to build something like a chatpdf.com for yourself using your own code, how to build an application which looks very similar to chatpdf.com. We'll try to talk about what RAGs are, how to design RAGs, and then we'll see that Chat PDF is also one of the RAG-based application, RAG-based application, and how to actually create your own Chat PDF kind of an application. We'll discuss about that during these sessions. We'll also see something called as fine-tuning your LLMs. Fine-tuning is a very advanced domain when it comes to generative AI. It is very advanced, but we'll be discussing about this domain as well end to end. We'll be talking about how to do proper fine-tuning, the basic fine-tuning till basic to advanced. We'll be discussing in this domain. We'll be talking about what is something called as PEFT. Have you ever heard of this term called as PEFT? Anyone who has heard about PEFT, P-E-F-T? So there is something called as parameter efficient fine tuning. FT means fine tuning, PE means parameter efficient fine tuning, which is a very advanced topic. And it is actually used nowadays to basically fine tune LLMs. There are various PEFT techniques. There is something called as low rank LORA. There is something called as QLORA, and many more techniques which are actually used nowadays under PEFT to fine-tune your LLMs. Similarly, once you understand all of this, then there is something called as LangChain. Have you ever heard of a word called as LangChain or a library called as LangChain? A module called as LangChain, which has become very popular in the space of generative AI? Yes. So we'll be discussing about how to build your entire application end-to-end using LangChain. Right? And finally, we will also be talking about how to build these models from scratch, how to build these models from scratch. And there is one topic that we are introducing, which is not in the curriculum right now. We are also planning to introduce something called as, if you have built your generative AI application, how to put it on cloud. Cloud Gen AI is something we are also planning to put in our curriculum. Not planning, we are going to do this as well during the advanced generative AI course at Innomatics Research Labs. And if you are planning to become a generative AI engineer or somebody who wants to explore this domain, I would suggest you to go through this path. All right, one by one, try to go through this path. If you have to do your own generative AI, your own research on generative AI, please go through this entire path. I've told you what are the prerequisites required. please try to go through those prerequisites, try to go through this entire path of generative AI, starting from the basic introduction to learn how LLMs can be constructed, diffusion models can be constructed, prompt engineering, RAGs, fine-tuning, LangChain based generative AI application development. Try to learn how these LLM models or generative AI models can be built from scratch. Try to understand the underlying mathematics. Try to understand underlying maths behind the algorithms, and also try to see if you can learn something called as cloud-based generative AI techniques, because nowadays AWS has launched, Azure has launched a lot of cloud-based tool for generative AI models and generative AI applications. So this is something which is something which is going to be used by a lot of companies when you start working. Like companies are actually going to ask you to build some generative AI applications on their maybe AWS servers or Azure servers, and how to put those generative AI models, LangChain based generative AI models on these servers, these cloud-based applications, servers. We'll be discussing about that as well during our course. Small language models, SLM, that is a small extension to what you have right now. All right, so we'll be discussing about that as well. These are some common basic topics. If you know the overall generative AI, the way in this to this depth, if you know generative AI, understanding SLM is nothing. SLM is a small topic. As the name suggests, small language model, it is also a small topic to understand if you know all of this. What is the duration of the course? It will be 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Plus, we expect you to have prerequisites. This is only for the people who have the prerequisites. All right, so this 6 weeks will make sense only if you have the prerequisites. And we have already discussed about the prerequisites that are required. Did that all make sense to all of you? Can you please again tell me, how did you like this webinar so far on all the topics that we have discussed? Like, was it able to make you understand generative AI and the entire landscape of generative AI? What all is going on in generative AI? What are various different things you need to learn in order to become a generative AI expert, roadmap, as well as what are the prerequisites? So that was the main reason of this webinar. I'll show you a little bit of code now. Maybe it will take another 5 minutes for me to wrap up. But that also I'll try to see. I'll try to share. Just give me like 2 to 3 more minutes. I'll be talking about that. But before that, let me take like questions in case if you have any. Yes, we have already discussed most of it in January internship. I think we didn't discuss the fine tuning of LLMs, right? We didn't discuss about this part. We didn't discuss about this part, right? We didn't discuss about this part, and we didn't discuss about diffusion models, right? So all these things, apart from all the other things in more depth, will be discussed in this course because we'll be having more time. Yes, we only discussed till RAGs. LangChain also we already completed in the previous batch. LangChain was also discussed in that batch. What are weights and biases in the model? That is a big concept. Weights and biases is something that model actually learns whenever it gets trained. Models like linear regression, logistic regression, support vector machines, they actually learn weights and biases or weights and bias from during the training process. Any questions? Any concerns? Now, before we end this workshop, do you know, like how many of you know that next week we have planned, just give me a second. Do you know what is there next week on 29th? Anyone who remembers or knows what is there on 29th? No, no, no. No, no, from Innomatics perspective, not from what is there on in the next week, what is going to be done. Okay, let me tell you what is going to be done in next week. Um, just give me a second. Yes, there is another generative AI webinar. You know on what topic are we going to have a generative AI webinar in the next week? Anyone? Any ideas on what is going to be the topic for next week's generative AI webinar? Yes, perfect. So that's what I wanted to show you. Just give me a second. So this is going to be the part of next week's webinar. We'll continue from here, like whatever we discussed today. We'll continue from here in the next week, and we'll try to understand a little bit more about generative AI, and we'll try to understand like how to actually build apps using or powered by generative AI. Will that be helpful for? I think most of you will be really appreciating the followed up webinar on top of whatever we have discussed so far today, right? Can we do this? Are you all excited about it? Yes, amazing. So what I will like assume in the next week's webinar is that you know the basics of generative AI, whatever we have discussed in today's webinar, and we'll try to follow, like we'll try to proceed from here, and we'll try to cover up some application development processes for generative AI. We'll try to discuss about that in the next week's webinar. All right. But before ending today's session, I want to show you one small snippet of code that will quickly give you a sense of what kind of models or what kind of things you can do with generative AI. Is my screen visible? Is my desktop screen visible? All right, just give me a second. I'll try. All right. So what we are going to like, how we actually use generative AI based models in order to develop applications. We typically use libraries like Hugging Face. Hugging Face is like an open source place where you remember I told you that generative AI model development is very expensive. Do you all agree with that? Yes or no? That generative AI model building is very expensive. If you do not want it to be expensive, what is the trade-off there? If you don't want it to be expensive, if you want to do it on your own computer, what is the trade-off? You remember you have to like end up spending many, many years in order to build a good model. You remember I told you like GPT-3 on your computer, if you don't want to invest in the architecture, you have to spend 355 years on that, right? Otherwise, if you want to build your own model, how should you build your own model? You have to build your own model by burning a lot of money. Luckily, there are companies out there like Meta. Meta is a company who has developed Llama. You remember? And you know what Meta has done? Meta has given the Llama for free for us to use. All right. And where do you find these free models? Where do you find all these open source models? You'll be able to find all these open source models on a website called as Hugging Face website. Or Hugging Face actually is a company which actually is an open source repository for all these models. Which model was I talking about? Meta's model, right? So let me search for Meta's model. You see, Meta Llama. And which version of Meta Llama is currently very popular? Llama 3 is very popular. You know how many total models are there on this website? How many total models are there on this website? Generative AI model? 7,27,000 generative AI models are currently available. Not all of them are safe to use, but many of them are going to help you solve a lot of your problems. You can build a lot of applications, many sophisticated applications using these models that are directly available for us to build our application. In order to build my application, I will use the model, right? A company, maybe something like, you see, Stability. Stability has created which model? Stability AI has created a model called as Stable Diffusion. Right now, they are showing 3 days ago, Stability AI dropped another model called as Stable Diffusion 3 Medium. Right. So this is a 3 days back, a new model that was created that is dropped by Stability AI on this website called as Hugging Face. Similarly, there is another website which is very popular for image-based model. That model is called, that website is called as Civit AI. This website is typically for majorly for the models that are actually used for image-based tasks. For example, let's say you want to enhance the images, or you want to do image in painting, or you want to do something like image generation. For all of that, you have a very nice website called as Civit AI. Otherwise, you can also find a lot of image-based models even on Hugging Face. That is also completely fine as per your requirement. You can explore both the websites. In our course, when we discuss about generative AI, I'll show you like how to utilize Hugging Face, how to utilize Civit AI, how to use like stable diffusion, how to use diffusion models or build diffusion models, how to build large language models. All these things in detail we'll be discussing. In a single session, nobody can do justice on talking about everything about generative AI. I'm trying to condense the content to an extreme length, and I'm trying to help you understand as much as you can within these 2 hours webinar. If you want to learn more about Hugging Face, you can always go to this repository on GitHub. All right. And you can see like introduction to Hugging Face, how to use Hugging Face. And there are few more topics that are going to come soon in order to complete this repository. So this is the introduction to Hugging Face, and you can quickly skim through this entire thing to make more sense out of it. All right, so I don't want to get into the code, but next session, we are going to get into the code, and we'll try to see how to build generative AI applications using Python programming language, how to build apps which are powered by generative AI. That will be the content for the next session. But just for the sake of completeness, I'm showing you that there are many things you can do. For example, given a text, you can do classification. Given a text, you can do name entity recognition. You can also do question answering. You remember chatpdf.com, right? You can do question answering on the given texts. You can do summarization. You can do text generation, and many more things can be done using this library called as Hugging Face by appropriately importing the models that are actually going to help you solve those problems. I'll be discussing more on this in the next session. I hope I was able to make you understand the entire generative AI landscape. Yes, I'll be sharing the link. Just give me a second. Um, are you able to see it in the chat? Sai Krishna, are you able to see it in the chat? I just dropped the link there. Please make sure you maybe bookmark this repo so that you can go through the contents of this repo. This is going to be updated on a regular basis.